At the end of every year, I do a year in review post over at thesurvivalgardener.com where I kind of keep a running total. I keep a running total through the year, but then I put all of the numbers out at the end of the year. How did we do? What did we raise? And it kind of gives us something to try and beat the next year. We can see which crops did well and which didn't. And because I don't have a perfect memory, it's really helpful to write it all down year after year. So for 13 years on The Survival Gardener, I have been posting a year in review post. So at the beginning of 2024, I said that my goal for the year was to grow 5,000 pounds of food. So I thought, hey, let's just run it over here, because I know a lot of people on YouTube don't ever go over to my blog or read the blog. People have told me that blogging is dead, but I still like to do it anyways. I know that a lot of people have kind of moved to YouTube or to TikTok or to whatever, and the reading and interacting and commenting is just not what it was, say, 10 years ago. So I thought it would be kind of fun to just kind of go through what we grew. Now, in order to measure what we grow, we have a weigh station, which you've seen in a lot of my videos, I'm sure. And we weigh our produce before it goes into the house when we can. Some stuff gets eaten in the garden, particularly berries and fruits and sometimes some fresh vegetables that get eaten before they come in. So we have to weigh ourselves before we go into the garden, and then we have a bathroom scale and we just weigh ourselves coming back into the house so we know what the difference is. No, we don't do that. But some things we just figure, well, oh well, we ate it in the garden. But generally, most of the produce gets weighed coming in, and we get a pretty close approximation of what we've harvested through the year. And as we bring it in and we weigh it, I write it on the board, we bring it into the kitchen, and we process it, freeze it, can it, eat it, whatever. So having a weigh station is actually a really nice thing. So if you haven't done that, this is a good time to set it up, to set up a little place to weigh your produce, and then to just write it down on a board. And then at the end of the year, you can add it up and you can get an idea of what you've grown, and if you've done better this year than the previous year, and which crops did great and which crops didn't do so great. And you can see the difference from the previous year. You just find a way to write it down and keep it. And for me, that's the Survival Gardener site, thesurvivalgardener.com, where I have the free blog with something like 3,000 posts on it now. I've been doing that for a very long time. So we are now in 2025, and I thought, hey, let's go through what we harvested and see how we did. Are you ready? Oh yeah, all that stuff. All right, here we go. Yams, 206 pounds. 206 pounds of yams, and that is the true yams, Dioscorea species. 18 pounds of ube yams. On top of that, I counted the ubes as separate. That's a kind of a specialty yam. 16 pounds of daikons, 12 pounds of mulberries, 2 pounds of pineapple, one pineapple, 134 pounds of potatoes, 161 pounds of tomatoes. This is the first year we ever had tomatoes beat our potatoes, and that was because we grew them in the greenhouse, and we had much more success in the greenhouse than we ever did in the garden, at least here. When we were in Tennessee, we did really well in the garden, but not so much here. All right, so pumpkins. Now, at the beginning of the year, I wanted to grow thousands of pounds of pumpkins. Well, I didn't get thousands, but I got 1,275 pounds of pumpkins in 2024. And I am sick of pumpkins, and I'm going to start cutting them up and feeding them to the cows. It's entirely too many pumpkins. But it was fun to grow them. And that's really the point of it, right? 32 pounds of eggplant. This was a good year for eggplants. 44 pounds of cucumbers. 136 pounds of cucuza squash. Cucuza is Laginarius acera. It's a relative of the bottle gourd. It's actually the same species as bottle gourd, but it has been bred to be a summer squash. It's much better than the evil summer squash that starts with a Z that we don't eat around here. Cucuzza is nice and pleasant. I like it a lot. It's an Italian heirloom, and it is ridiculously productive. It's definitely on our must plant list now. We got 3 pounds of peppers. This was not a great year for peppers. 1 pound of blueberries. It was a bad year for blueberries. 278 pounds of watermelons. 15 pounds of tobacco. 25 pounds of jelly melons. 12 pounds of persimmons. That was off of a tree that really bore for the first time this year, so 12 pounds is not too bad. It was a few dozen persimmons. 118 pounds of pecans. This was a good one. The last 2 years we haven't had much coming in from the pecan trees, but the pecans did really well this year, particularly the one pecan tree that we put the cows' watering trough under, and we feed the cows hay next to it. So they've left lots and lots of manure around this tree for the last year and a half or so, and this year it just decided it was ready to roll. It's a very old tree, so the production is not as good as it would be on a tree that's maybe middle-aged, but 118 pounds of pecans scattered across 4 trees that were productive. We got 60 pounds of Dioscorea bulbifera bulbils. That is the edible variety of Dioscorea bulbifera, also known as air potato. There's a toxic variety that grows wild all over Florida. This is not that one. This is the edible type. We got 20 pounds of Dioscorea pentaphylla yams. That's the 5-leaf yam. That was our first year. We've done decently with that. We got 8 pounds of Jamaican sorrel, 91 pounds of cassava, 7 pounds of arrowroot, 6 pounds of turnips, 69 pounds of sweet potatoes, and 300 pounds of sugarcane, for a total garden yield, that's vegetable yield or crop yield, of 3,049 pounds. 3,049 pounds out of the garden. And that's a little bit from the food forest, but mostly from the grocery rows and from the little bits of row garden and the trellises that we have around our garden area. Our complete garden area is about maybe 1/6 of an acre, but it's not all in intensive production. There's parts of it that aren't doing very much. And some of that area just had pumpkins running over it, and we counted as part of the garden, but it wasn't really that productive. Then we get to the animal products part of the farm. We got 901 eggs, 90 gallons of milk from the cows, 1,203 pounds of pork from 5 hogs, and that is finished pork. That's not just hanging weight. That's actually what we got back. This time we sent them to the butchers, which was kind of expensive, but they vacuum packed everything. They even smoked and cured hams and bacon for us. And last time we had 2 pigs to do, and it took us from 9 a.m. till about 10:30 at night with maybe 6-7 people helping. And this time I said, you know what? We'll send it all to the butchers and see how that goes. But it was a little expensive, so we may just do 2 pigs again and do it ourselves or something. But doing 5 pigs, I wasn't really looking forward to that much butchering work. It's a lot of effort. And then we did 30 chickens for a total of 65 pounds. So our total yield of food from the homestead was 4,317 pounds of food. So that's not so bad. Adventure Bob says, rookie numbers, pump it up. Yeah, you know what? Tobacco shouldn't count as food. Well, I counted it. You can eat it if you want to. You can chew it. So that's what we got. It was a excellent year. It was the best year that we have ever had. But there's a few things that didn't really do all that great. So I'm going to go back over a couple things that didn't do well and why I don't think they did well. Daikons, we did not do a lot of this year for harvest. We actually did a lot of daikons for seed, so I left a lot of them out there in the garden to make great big roots and then to put up gigantic shoots and give us lots of seeds because we're working on a daikon land race. And so that was not the way to get lots of daikon yields. Ideally, we would have let them go 2 or 3 months and then harvested them. But when you let them go to seed, they get spongy on the inside, woody, they aren't any good anymore. So daikons, we probably would have had more like 100 pounds if we hadn't have left a ton of them in the ground. Pineapples, obviously we have to grow those in the greenhouse. And I thought I'd like to get more pounds of pineapples because they're so good right off of the plant. But 2 pounds for our first pineapple out of there, that's fine. But I think I'd like to pot up maybe 30 or 40 of them in pots. They do really well in pots and still make pineapples well. And then just keep them in the greenhouse because having 20, 30 pineapples in a year would be pretty nice. Potatoes, again, were not that great. We struggle with potatoes here. I know you guys up north, potatoes are just an easy crop. Here we get problems with them dying, rotting, getting chewed beneath the ground, and fire ants really do a number on potatoes. I'm going to try potatoes again this year. I'm going to try and row crop them further out. I'm going to tear up a piece of pasture with a tiller and put some potatoes in and see if I can balance the minerals ahead of time. And maybe they were a little short on phosphorus or potassium or something. I gave them some cottonseed meal and they greened up and they were nice and green, but they still didn't give us much yield. You know, you plant 40 pounds of potatoes and you get 134 pounds of potatoes. That's not great. Those yields should be way better than that. But potatoes are something that are not ideally suited here. The yams are ideally suited here. We got 206 pounds of yams for barely planting any of them. A lot of them were just kind of carryovers from previous years. And if we divided up and planted more yams, we could do more. As for the ube yams, we got 18 pounds of ube yam that we actually harvested. But that's because I have about 120 row feet of ube in the ground that I started from some expensive ube roots that I got from an Asian market, and I cut them into little pieces, spread them out down these rows, and I've now grown them into roots that are about this big. If I was to go through there and dig them all, I'm sure I could get maybe 200 pounds or so, but they are my planting material for a bigger space. This coming spring, I would like to plant a very large patch of ube yam, so I grew them up from pieces to make larger roots, which I can then turn around and cut into pieces and make more roots. So the ube yam, this is not the year to harvest, this was the year to grow out seed. Mulberries didn't do so hot this year, 12 pounds. It's okay, but we had late frosts and the trees are still young, so not great. We have a lot of mulberries in the ground that are not really producing much yet. The 161 pounds of tomatoes I think is good. We're going to try and double that this year. The pumpkins, 1,275 pounds. I'm not going to do that again. That was really fun to do, but that's a lot of pumpkins. And I haven't been that impressed with the flavor of a lot of them. I'd like to find a much, much better tasting pumpkin and see if I could grow it here. Some of our land races have just been kind of watery. They're very productive. They're a little bit bland. And, you know, they're not bad on production. And they're not bad to eat for a while, but they're not great to eat for a very long period of time. I think I would get tired of any pumpkin after a long period of time. But if it was a really exceptionally flavored pumpkin and we grew more of it, I wouldn't mind that. Eggplant, we loved the eggplant. It did great, 32 pounds of it. We could have done a lot more. It tended to get overrun by weeds, and we didn't care for it as well as we should have. It got overshadowed by some other stuff. But I have gotten 3 or 4 different varieties of eggplants we're going to try this year and do some more. And cucumbers were only 44 pounds this year. Last year, I think we got about 160 pounds of cucumbers. This year, the pickle worms got into them, and they were not as happy. Plus, we had larger trees in the grocery row gardens, and they did not appreciate the cooler spring and the extra shade. So I think between the pickle worms, the shade, etc., the cucumbers need a little more sun. We've got a few more varieties we're going to try this year. And I'm going to be doing some extreme pruning once some stuff fruits for us in the grocery rows because a few of those trees have kind of gotten out of control. They need to be cut back. The cucuzza, 136 pounds. That was plenty. We didn't need any more cucuzza. Only 3 pounds of peppers. That was not good. That was pretty pathetic. So we're doubling down. We're going to plant maybe 100 or more pepper plants this year, sweet peppers and hot peppers, so I can make a bunch of smoky hot pepper sauce and jar it. Blueberries only 1 pound. It was a bad year for blueberries, frost issues and stuff. We don't have a lot of blueberries either. We need to plant some more. This year, 278 pounds of watermelons. Again, I think it was a shade issue. They weren't quite as happy in the grocery rows this year as they were last year. They liked a little bit of shade. They didn't like a lot of shade, and some other stuff overgrew them. Last year, we got about 740 pounds of watermelons, if I remember correctly. So we're going to do some field watermelons in full sun. We'll do some in the grocery rows in the more open areas and see how they do. Jelly melon, we did 25 pounds, but not many of my kids liked them. I liked them and enjoyed them, but that wasn't great. The pecans this next year will probably skip out on us. I don't know that I'm going to plant many more cassava. 91 pounds of cassava was good, but they do take 2 years to give us a yield here for the most part, and that's not great. The 7 pounds of arrowroot was kind of cool. I'm planting more arrowroot. I like the way it looks. We're trying to figure out how to eat it. 6 pounds of turnips was pathetic, so I'm planting about 500 turnips this year, this spring. Lord willing, the creek don't rise. And then sweet potatoes, only 69 pounds. For some reason, this was a bad year for sweet potatoes. A lot of them got eaten in the ground, so that was kind of disappointing. It wasn't a bad year for sugarcane, even though we had a big drought. If we didn't have the drought at the end of the year, I think our sugarcane yields would have been significantly higher, but 300 pounds was okay. We have now about tripled the space in sugarcane that we planted, so maybe we'll get 1,000 pounds this next year. That would be great because we're in the middle of fixing our cane mill. As for the eggs, we only got eggs for the first half of the year, and then something ate most of the chickens again, and so we're going to have to revamp our security systems. So 901 eggs was not great. I think we got something like 3,000 last year. 90 gallons of milk. We stopped milking the cows early in the year because of having a newborn baby, and it was too much effort to milk the cows and take care of a baby, and the work divided between my wife and I. She milks the cows, so we found a source for raw milk locally at a good price because we buy in large quantities, and we just went ahead and switched to that, and we rebred the cows, so we should be able to milk the cows again in the probably starting in summer. That's when the calves are due. And we let them keep the calves for a while, and then we might do some calf sharing or something. And so we'll probably be looking at getting back to milking the cows August, September. So we should do a lot better than 90 gallons because between a couple of cows, we were usually getting about 3 gallons a day. I don't know if we're going to do 5 pigs again. We have so much pork in the freezer right now, and it is so good. We've had bacon and ham, and I've been making breakfast sausage with a bunch of spices and maple syrup, and it tastes amazing. So, I mean, I could just live on that breakfast sausage, and the quality of the pork is just better than we could buy, and I know where it came from, and I know what it ate. It ate a lot of pumpkins. And then we raised 30 chickens for 65 pounds worth of meat in the spring, but we had a lot of problems with the chickens this year. A lot of chick fatalities. They climbed on top of each other and killed each other and all kinds of other issues. So I just was not very fond of it, but that's what we're doing. So I figured I'd kind of run through. I mean, if you look at the overall year, I know what didn't do that great and what I was disappointed in, but still 4,317 pounds of food produced on the homestead. That's a pretty good run. So I'm working on a course right now. I've actually been working on it since June. It's called How to Grow 1 Ton of Food in Your Florida Garden in Your Very First Year. And I have consistently been able to grow a ton of food now and have worked out which crops really do well. Even though we're always experimenting and we're always trying new things, we have our staple crops that are at the center of our garden, and we have figured out what really is going to do well generally year after year. And we've gotten to the point where we could really go without buying food for long chunks of time. there are some things that are pleasant to have that we buy, like it's nice to have some beef now and again. Um, it's nice to have some spices that we don't grow. I mean, we could probably try to grow all of our own spices too, and do all the dehydrating and grinding, etc. But we basically have tried to concentrate on the big parts of the meal. So if we serve ribs and some mashed yams and some greens from the garden, we've got a really good meal, and we eat like that a lot. And that has been really a blessing, particularly just being on our own land and being able to pull in those kinds of yields, and just to know that, I mean, I could go out to the garden right now, even though I have lots of stuff harvested. Like, for example, yesterday I pulled 40 pounds of cassava out of the ground from the grocery row garden. So, well, that's like a week's worth of cassava for our family. And we'll eat some of it tonight, and then some of it will go in the freezer for the future. And we've got sweet potatoes all over our closed-in porch area that we can roast and eat sweet potatoes anytime we want it. And in the spring we get potatoes. And right now I can go out and I can pull daikons that we planted in the fall and pickle them, or slice them, roast them. My wife roasted some daikons the other night as part of dinner. It was really good. We've got pumpkins all over the house we're trying to eat. Pumpkin pie, pumpkin curry, pumpkin soup, pumpkin cheesecake, whatever. There's all kinds of pumpkins, and so we've always got food. And then there's a lot of yams that are still in the ground that I didn't dig. I don't even bother digging them. Like, we don't need the food right now, so if we just let them stay in the ground, we can harvest them again later if we want to. We can pull them anytime until about the beginning of April when they sprout again. When they sprout again, they're going to digest the old yam over the next few months, and they'll build a new yam. And that new yam will be bigger than the yam that's in the ground now. So if we don't get around to eating it sometime in this winter before April 1st, then we just wait until November of this year, and there'll be a brand new big yam there that we can eat. So, I mean, when people ask how much of your food comes out of the garden, almost all of our food could come out of the garden if we didn't want to buy things like rice. Like, if I want to make fried rice, and right now we're buying eggs. And if we wanted something specialty that I don't have enough on the homestead yet. Like, for example, we've planted apples and satsumas, and we've got a lemon tree, but all of those are small. We have plums, we have pears, but they're small. So there's a few years of waiting time before we're going to get those. I mean, so if I want to make smoothies for the kids or something, I might go and buy blueberries, but when the blueberries really come in, we'll have a lot of blueberries, and when the mulberries really get rolling, I remember one of our 2-year-old trees down in Florida gave us 6 gallons of mulberries in the second year. So 6 gallons of organic berries. So that's a lot of smoothies. That's cobbler. That's good for throwing in your yogurt or whatever else. So it's more that, like, we might get tired of just eating pumpkins and pork and yams and sweet potatoes. Sometimes you just, oh, you know what, let's get some of this, or like, let's make some mayonnaise. We don't use regular mayonnaise. Like, regular mayonnaise is all soybean oil. We don't eat that. So Rachel will make mayonnaise with a little bit of lemon and a little bit of egg and light olive oil, so we don't eat all of that soybean oil. So that sort of thing, yeah, we'll go and buy it. The kids wanted hot cocoa the other day, so I went out and I bought a bag of organic cocoa powder, and one of the kids made hot chocolate for everybody, So it's like, getting all the way to self-sufficiency, might mean going without hot chocolate, and so we haven't done that yet. So, you kind of get it, right? I'm going to answer some questions right now. So I I just kind of wanted to give you the run through and let you know what we're doing. Tommy asks, don't you know someone around Molina, Pensacola who sells raw milk? I have a source, but they're short. My friend would like to buy raw milk for his son. Yes, I do have somebody. You have to meet them at a street corner, and they wear a trench coat. No, just drop me an email. Mary Jane says, this year my daughter gave me a 50-pound bag of potatoes that had turned into space aliens. They had 3 to 4 foot vines when they went into the ground. I got enough to bottle with my green beans. Carl says, watermelons are the 1-ton cheat code. Simple and heavy. 2,000 pounds of watermelon sounds awesome all by itself, too. Yeah, that would be cool. 2,000 pounds of watermelon. I love watermelon. I really, really look forward to watermelon season. In my mind, the watermelon is just about the best fruit that you can ever eat. And you can get it in only 4 months from seed. I mean, that's really great. I'm going to try some cantaloupes this year, too. We haven't tried cantaloupes in a while. We had some issues with them in the past. I was like, I'm going to try it again. Green Country Agroforestry said, I experimented with growing rice, having an easier time with wheat. Yeah, we experimented with various small grains, rye, barley, wheat. I've not tried rice, but didn't do very great at harvesting it and processing it or getting much out of it. The one that we had the best luck with was grain corn. That's the only real grain crop that I like to grow because I like cornbread and I like grits. And I'd like to have corn that's not genetically modified. So growing our own corn has been something we've done multiple times. But rice would be kind of cool. It would be fun just to see it grow, you know. Yeah, Adventure Bob, good luck with your red fife wheat. That would be interesting. Thomas Garside says, you don't grow your own chocolate. We used to grow our own chocolate. When we were down in the Caribbean, we harvested it, we processed it. Oh, man, I miss that. That was cool. We had lots of chocolate. However, cocoa is really sensitive to cold, and it's also very sensitive to low humidity, so you may be able to keep it alive warmth-wise in a greenhouse, but it also likes a constant higher humidity, and, you know, it's been very difficult. I planted some down in South Florida, in the South Florida Food Forest. It died. I got one for my cousin who was in Ocala, and he kept it inside of his house through the winter, and he put a big old bowl of water next to it to try and keep it humidified. It died. It's not easy. If it's in the right climate, it's actually very easy to grow. It was super easy to grow in the Caribbean, but not here. So, hello from South Carolina. Hello, Grandma Zoo. Good to see you. What would be a good yam for decent-sized air potatoes? The ones I've seen are teeny tiny. You're probably looking at the Dioscorea batatas, aka Dioscorea polystachya. Probably Dioscorea polystachya is what you've got, the Chinese yam. Those are itty-bitty. The Dioscorea bulbifera varieties are bigger, and the Dioscorea pentaphylla, they get about the size of a golf ball. That's not too bad. Let's see what we got here. What about papayas? Papayas are fantastic. They don't grow well here either. The frost will completely melt them. If it hits 32 degrees, they're done. So papayas have to go in the greenhouse. I have some in the greenhouse right now. They're not super happy, but I need to plant some in the ground in there instead of in pots. Let's see what we have here. William says, about how many acres in your area would you recommend to be able to support a dozen people? Any difference in that estimate if the land was in Florida zone 910? This is a very complicated question, William. Okay, if you had 5 acres or so, you could support a dozen people. That would give you a couple of acres of pasture, half an acre of garden, some fruit trees, space for a house, a little bit of lawn. I think that you could support a dozen people in zone 8B, but you would want to make sure that you are not on that really bad pineland soil. You'd like to get someplace that has somewhat decent soil. There are patches of areas that have good soil, because the soil is really key to a lot of it. I know people will say, oh, you can just improve the soil, but if you have an acid, fast draining sand that is very, very mineral deficient, you'd be better off getting something that's a little loamier with a little bit more nutrients in it. So if you see a whole bunch of pines, that may not be what you want. And yes, there is a difference in the estimate if the land was in Florida 9/10. If you were in a place like, if you're in zone 10 where it doesn't freeze, you could support 12 people on an acre, because you can grow bananas and plantains and yams and cassava year round. You could perpetually replant. You can grow mangoes. You can grow all kinds of things that just perpetually go all year round. You can tick, 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 tick. You don't have to like really be that careful about your seasons. So if you're in a place where you can grow, say, starfruit, starfruit grows 2 crops a year, you know, and if you can grow starfruit, you can grow cassava, and you can perpetually replant cassava all through the year. You just keep sticking pieces in the ground every time you harvest. You don't have that luxury. Once you get into freezing temperature, once you get out of the tropics, everything changes. And the further north you get, the more you rely on really fast-growing stuff and on animal foods, like just grazing animals over 20 acres and eating the animals, because you really have such a short season. If you look at the traditional diet of the Inuit people, they didn't have the ability to garden because it's too cold. So there's a little bit of wild berries and a little bit of forage and a whole bunch of meat and fish. And when you get down to the tropics, though, it's super easy to just like live like a vegetarian, you know, I mean, because you could just eat fruit all day long, and then you can go fishing and get some fish if you want, you know. It makes a big difference to be in a frost-free location, so a lot less acreage. I haven't tried Tuscan cantaloupes. It sounds nice. I'll look them up. Jupiter Mojo says, hi, David. Is there some magic on knowing when to harvest cassava roots? Same age trees. Some roots perfect for eating, and others I could make furniture with. Yeah, I've noticed that if they don't grow quickly and happily with enough water and nutrients, you get those hard roots. A good, consistent, well-fed cassava plant gives you more tender roots. Roots that are not growing in the happiest soil don't do as well. I feel around the base of them. I can dig a little bit away and try to figure out what the diameter of the roots are. If they're 2 or 3 inches, it's usually ready to pull them. But if the tree looks really big and thick and happy, the roots are often good too. But if the tree it's got a skinny trunk and it's just looks like it's a little mangy, not so good. Doug says, did you make your own dairy? Yes, when we had the cows in full production, we were making cheese. We were making like farmer's cheeses and some mozzarella. We tried to make some aged cheese without very much luck. Tended to either get hard or really moldy. Didn't do very well. But we had butter, cream, sour cream, yogurt, all of that. That was very nice. Bitzilla says, David, any... Wait a second. It just jumped here. David, any idea what type of soil I can expect to have when I move to Middle Tennessee? Yes, you can expect yellow-red clay. It is good for making pottery out of, but there's some decent farmland around there too. It just depends on how much got stripped off the surface, or if you have bottom land or top land. The soil supports a lot of plants. The corn loved it. The tomatoes loved it. It's not bad, but it helps to get some gypsum on it, and also to deep mulch. We had a really good garden in deep mulch, even though our soil wasn't particularly great. There's a lot of beautiful green land up there in Middle Tennessee, but make sure you subdivision where they've stripped all the topsoil off and then just rolled out plastic mesh with grass stuck to it over the top of it. I saw a lot of places like that were pretty bad. Look for farmland. Doug says, I eat raw cocoa. It goes well with dates. Yeah, I like to eat straight up 100% chocolate. I'll eat bars of baking chocolate. I like the purest chocolate experience possible. When I make hot chocolate, I just make it with milk. I don't add any sugar to it. You could do coffee and other exotics with the cocoa too, but it would be a bit of an investment up front. Yeah. I find coffee is a lot easier to maintain in the greenhouse. I've got something like 70 plants in there right now. I want to make sure that I can grow coffee, you know, in case civilization collapses. I've got plants that are getting ready to bloom. They probably will produce some coffee this year. Let's see here. Carl says, my neighbors here in North Florida set up a tailgating tent over their papayas. They wrap them up on the chilly nights and unwrap them when warm. They have fruits on them now, but are ripening very slowly. Yeah, I fought a lot to get them to ripen in the Ocala area before the freezes. And even when I tried to protect them, we would get like a night in the teens or something and it would be all over. But even if it was 32 out in the yard, it was enough to get them. It was enough to kill them. But I grew them okay in the greenhouse. Yeah, Happy New Year to you too, William, and Happy Feast of the Epiphany, everybody. Let's see here. You could sell bottle gourds and loofah sponges to the city slickers all day long too. Yeah, you know what? I didn't even count my loofah yields this year. We got a few crates worth of loofah sponges, probably about 3 crates worth. Jake says, hi David, what would you say is a better state to homestead or live off grid, Alabama or Florida? The middle of Alabama in the Black Belt has some really nice soil. There's some nice places in Alabama. Alabama's a lot more affordable than Florida is now. But it is Alabama. It is not nearly as convenient as Florida, and the climate is harsher in the winter. You can't grow as much as you can in Florida. If I could live in the Naples area of Florida, I would, but I can't afford it. And to live off grid, Alabama has a lot less regulations, a lot less. Like you can build your own house. Often all you need is to get a septic tank approved. In a lot of these counties, you just have to have a septic tank, and you can build everything you want from there. You can't really do that in Florida anymore. So I would say to homestead, live off grid, Alabama would be better, but Florida overall has the better climate for the more tropical stuff. If you get further north in Alabama, you can grow some pretty nice apples and fruits, though. Let's see here. Green Country Agroforestry says, I entertain notions of weaning myself off of caffeine, but I am also known for being somewhat delusional. Oh yeah, you know what? All the way through Lent this last year, I didn't drink any alcohol, and I didn't smoke any cigars, and I thought about giving up coffee, but I only did that for 1 day. So all those people that tell you that, oh, you know, nicotine is so super addictive and you can't quit it or whatever, but they drink coffee all day. Listen, nicotine is a lot easier to give up than coffee. Caffeine owns you. It owns you. They should put billboards up about it. I just can't give up caffeine. It's impossible. It's terrible. It's very sad. What do you do with your coffee plants in the greenhouse during these cold snaps like we're having now? I have a bunch of barrels in the greenhouse that keep them from freezing. If it gets down to the mid-20s, I turn on a propane heater overnight. But generally, if it's getting down to 28, I don't worry about it. The barrels in the greenhouse keep them from dying. It's amazing how much the thermal mass of those barrels keeps the greenhouse from freezing. I've got something like 40 barrels in there. Tommy says, I'm trying to overwinter my cuttings in greenhouse, shed, mudroom. Hopefully it won't dry out or get molded this year. I have cuttings to stick in the soil in some bags as well. Yeah, the cassava is, I'm assuming you're talking about cassava. It so long as it doesn't freeze, usually you can get some cuttings to live. Yes, that's right, Green Country Agroforestry. Happy Baptism Day. Hey Sue said, would you weigh the loofah before or after they're dried? You know, if I weigh them after they're dried, they don't weigh anything. If I weigh them before they're dried, it feels like I'm cheating, so I didn't weigh them at all. Yeah, I don't think I could fast for 40 days. I was extremely sick. I had the death flu a few weeks ago, and I didn't hardly eat anything for three days or so, and I think I lost 4 or 5 pounds. I can't imagine fasting for 40 days. I mean, I've heard that if you fast for more than a week or so, it's extremely good for your body. It's extremely good for you. Your body starts to repair things that you didn't even know were broken. Um, but 40 days. Whew. Oh yes, we've eaten green bananas and papaya. We've eaten both of them many, many times. Wait, remember, we come from a tropical climate, so grew up in Fort Lauderdale, and then we lived in the Caribbean for 4 years, and green bananas are a regular part of our diet. Mary Jane says, if you want to expand the garden for food, will planting buckwheat thickly kill the grass? Probably not. Buckwheat, I don't think, will outcompete grass. You'd be better off just tarping it. You might be able to kill off the grass. You might be able to kill off the grass by planting velvet beans. Or something, but it's hard to kill off the grass by overplanting it. How did you get your fiddle leaf fig to look so nice? So far, I've mostly just watered it. It gets some coffee. Oh yeah, coffee. So every once in a while, let's give a little coffee. Give the give that guy a little coffee. Give this guy a little coffee. They like coffee. It's a nutrient solution. And those plants, that now that they're addicted to caffeine, they can't live without it, you know? What winter crops are you growing at the moment? Not a lot. I have a little patch. We did a food forest challenge. Here we go. Here, in case you guys don't know, this is the group that we have. If you appreciate what I'm doing and you want to join our next food forest challenge, which is coming up, and you want to see all of our Zoom streams, and we do live stuff, and we have a plant trade and all kinds of things, that is the Survival Gardener. You can join for a week for free, but hopefully you stick around, because we've got a lot of stuff going on, and there's a really good community, and there's a in-depth food forest course, and I've got a lot of like long, exclusive, cool how-tos and things. I've moved some of the stuff over there and away from YouTube, so we have an alternate platform, and it's ad-free. So instead, you pay a subscription, and then I answer questions over there. So you get a top gardening consulting. So let's see where we are. Where are we? What winter crops are growing? There we go. So back to the food forest challenge. I planted some. We did a food forest challenge in the fall, and I planted in a bunch of turnips, peas. I planted some cucumbers. We only got a few cucumbers off it before they froze, and then we put some let's see, daikons, turnips, peas. Yeah, that's mostly it. So right now we've got greens that we're pulling out of there. We're pulling turnips, and I actually have to go pull some daikons because I want to make some fermented daikons. I think they taste really great fermented. When do I start going back to the market in Pensacola? I'm not sure if I'm going to do that this year. I thought about taking the nursery, doing the nursery thing in the spring, but I would like to finish my 1 ton of food in Florida course and get that done and do some consulting. I'm keeping the nursery running, but I'm going to basically just sell plants at the events we do. We're doing an event in Milton that is coming up in March, and then we're going to do an event over in Jacksonville, and I'll probably do a couple events in the middle of the state of Florida. But I don't know that we're going to do our regular nursery booth unless I can get one of my kids to run it for me. It was fun to do, but it took 2 days of work to set up, and I would really like to be finishing more books and finishing this course, because I think this course is going to help a lot of people that have moved to Florida. If you can grow a ton of food in your first year in Florida, that is a game changer. And I've noticed I'm not that happy with a lot of the Florida gardening books and stuff, so I had to write my own, and I figured since a lot of people are moving more towards video, I would record a course and just show exactly how to do it. So I've been working on that since June, and I kind of like to finish it. I don't know that I just want to sell nursery plants. My favorite thing to do is to write. So if I can finish this course and then do some more writing, I have a book on food forests I want to finish, and then I have a trilogy on tobacco, caffeine, and sugar that I'd like to write on both history and how to grow and produce your own. And I'm kind of getting stuck, you know. Carl says we get hooked on caffeine early too. Soda, coffee, energy drinks, etc. Yeah. I like coffee, but I just drink black coffee. I'm very, very plain. I don't drink sweet coffees. I just make black coffee, or I will have a latte because my wife has one of those fancy espresso makers, and she bought it for me. But I think she uses it more than I do, and she's really good at using it, so sometimes she'll just bring me an awesome latte, you know. That's pretty cool. But I don't drink soda either. And I don't drink sweet tea. I'm not a real Southerner. Let's see where we are here. I'm trying to get everybody. Yeah, Green Country Agroforestry said, begin in meditation. If the spirit moves you to fast, do so, but keep someone around to make sure you stay grounded. A person could be so heavenly minded as to be no earthly good, I'm told. Yeah, I think most people are so earthly minded they're no heavenly good. I don't think I've hardly ever met a single person that was really holy and sanctified and just completely eyes above. It's so rare. But I think that this Lent, I would like to pray all of the 3 sets of mysteries of the Rosary every day. So I'd like to pray the joyful and the sorrowful and the glorious mysteries every morning. I'd like to add that, get up and do that every day. I think that would be cool. Jupiter says, we bought 1 small envelope of velvet bean seeds from your girl's Etsy store. 2 years later, we just shucked over 400 plus seeds. We can't logistically cook and eat them fast enough. Lawn seed? Yeah, why not? It's a great nitrogen fixer. They've done such amazing work intercropping velvet beans and maize down in the tropics, and just they perpetually grow corn year after year after year after year after year, and they've done it for 50 years or more by intercropping it every year with velvet beans. And the velvet beans restore the soil and add so much organic matter and nitrogen that you can continually grow crops of corn. So it's remarkable that way. I only eat the beans when they are green in the pod. I don't eat them when they're all the way ripe because I've heard they have more anti-nutrients, etc. So the dry beans I don't eat. We just save for seeds. But I think we got something like 15 gallons of pods this year from the ones I planted. They're so great. They're such a cool plant. Hey, Joe, nice to see you, man. Happy New Year. Yeah, you know, Jake, in Florida, Loxahatchee, outside of Palm Beach, I would love to live in Loxahatchee. That would be super cool. But, again, I mean, I'd be paying $1 million for 5 acres with a house on it, or 1.5 million or something. I can't do that. I don't know how anybody does that. I mean, you got to be the Wolf of Wall Street or something, I guess. No, I have not tried growing dwarf tomatoes. I have grown determinate types that produce fast, though, and they do help. It does help get them before the heat of summer. The indeterminates that grow really long and they get really tall, they often don't do very well here because the weather just destroys them, and the bugs will come in and get them. Will the clover turn to weeds? I actually planted clover years ago, so I didn't have to fertilize the yard. The lawn loved it. Well, the white clover tends to be weedier than the red clover, but I like it anyways. Cows like it. I don't mind it. I like it. No sweet tea. I will eat watermelons, though. I don't like sweet tea. I like just straight up unsweetened tea. I find sweet tea to be annoying to drink. It's like cloying and syrupy. I just don't like sugar that much. I don't really like sugar in my drinks that much. About as sweet as I'll drink is maybe, I guess if somebody made me a rum and coke, or if I had a gin and tonic, I'll tolerate it. But, I don't really like sugar that much. I do like like a tablespoon of cane syrup on plain yogurt, though. That is good. William says exactly the price here: 5 acres with home, 1.5 million to 2 million, not on water. Oh my goodness, it's just, ooh, I mean, and then you got to pay property taxes, and you got to deal with all the regulations and stuff. You're just going to be in so much stress. You know what? It's like better to have a shack in some rough woods with a worse climate and peace than having all those bills. It's crazy. Joe, thank you. Thank you very much for the super chat. Being January 6th, I wish I could share a Rosca de Reyes with you, and if your piece of Rosca has a baby representing baby Jesus, then you owe everybody tamales. February 2nd. Yeah, my wife made a little cake this morning with a little baby in it, and one of the kids won the baby. I guess that's a thing. I don't know. I don't really know anything about it. But my wife is always finding interesting and esoteric things from various holidays, and it's pretty cool. Carl says, meanwhile, you can get 100 acres and a house for about $200,000 in places like Maine. Yeah, you can hack your way out of the ice. B says, David, does your wife's cookbook have recipes for Seminole squash and cassava? Oh yes, definitely, multiple recipes. I can find that. Just a second. She would appreciate you buying her book. Let me see if I can find it. I'll put the link up. Let's see. Here is the link. That's right, king cake. That's what it was. Yeah, Florida's way too full. It's totally true. 20 more likes for 100, folks. Thank you, Zero's Garden. I appreciate it. Will velvet beans grow in high desert, short season, Zone 5, Rocky Mountain Valley? Yeah, you would be able to get the beans to grow and cover the ground, but they would not set seeds in time, I don't think. They take a very long time to ripen the seeds up. They'll actually start making pods sometime July, August or so, and then it's September, October, November before they ripen. It's ridiculous. It takes a really long time. Yeah, with Florida, buying raw land and building your house on it, you're going to have to do everything with contractors because of how much regulation there is. It's ridiculous. So trying to just build your own, you have to deal with this inspector and that inspector and this inspector. I mean, down in Fort Lauderdale, I knew somebody that the posts rotted out on their fence. So they took the fence panels down and they replaced the posts and they put the fence panels back up. And then the city came by a week later and said, "Hey, you put up a new fence." And they said, "No, we didn't. We just replaced the old posts." And they said, "Well, you have to take all the panels down again so we can inspect the posts, and then you have to pay such and such fee, and then you can put it back up." So for like 2 weeks, they had to just sit there with a fence pulled apart until some inspector ambled on by and charged them a couple $100, and then they stuck it back up again. I mean, that's a lot of Florida. It's not so bad out in some of the country, but you still have to deal with the state building restrictions, which are pretty heavy. So thank you very much for the super chat, Tommy. I hope we run into each other this year again. Be really good to see you guys again. Hope your gardening and everything is going well. I enjoyed the chances we got to talk down in Pensacola. Only could grow one thing in Naples, Florida to survive. What would it be? Oh, that's a good question. Plantains. Well, maybe if you're outside of Pensacola, Carl. I mean, like Santa Rosa County. It's not so bad. The more, in general, the more rural it is, it's not as bad, but still, you're gonna have to put your posts at this thing and your outlets at this level and all that stuff. Could you just leave cassava in the ground if you don't get a freeze? I'm in Houston 9B. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I leave it in the ground through a freeze most of the time. I've got some covered with hay out in the garden right now, and I've had it carry through 2 years before, no problem. Yeah, it gets much cheaper when you get over to the Alabama side, that's for sure. Well, guys, I'm going to call it. I got to go in and have dinner, but thank you for hanging out with me for a bit. Happy New Year. Happy Feast of the Epiphany. And I hope to see some of you guys over at our school community. You can go and sign up for free for a week and check it out and watch all the videos and stuff. And if you want to stick around, that'd be awesome. Appreciate the support. But it's been a really nice community because we can post photos and interact and ask questions and talk and trade plants and stuff much easier than you can on YouTube. So Happy New Year, and remember, you can grow over a ton of food too. Look at, I grew 4,317 pounds of food in 2024, and I don't even feel like we did nearly as good as we should have. So may you all have a very, very successful 2025 in your gardens with extremely green thumbs. And I will catch you next time.